in giving up the pleasure of eating the delicious bread to save the rolls for Peter the goatherd's grandmother back home. My perspective would be different now, and my adult self would yell at Heidi, "Eat the bread." Growing up, my grandfather didn't live in the Alps, but in Sunderland, and my parents, my 5 siblings and I would visit him for tea every Sunday. He used to buy us each a miniature Hovis loaf. They were about 5 centimetres long, with the logo raised on the side. I loved each little loaf. The desire to preserve its wholeness pitted against the urge to cut it into tiny slices and wolf it down. Brown bread was a bit of a rarity for us. It would be neat to be able to tell you about my mother imparting the joy of bread making to me in clouds of flour and affection, but she did not bake bread. She bought Mother's Pride, white sliced bread, and I loved that too. I came to bread making fairly late in life, and I see this, at least partly, as being the result of a 1970s girls' school polarised take on feminism. The choice seemed to be between Simone de Beauvoir and the Stepford Wives. This meant that anything to do with household tasks had to be shunned at all costs, to avoid the dreaded fate of ending up as some sort of domestic slave. It took me a long time to realise that baking bread and freedom of choice were compatible. I moved gradually from a resigned obligation to feed my family to a realisation that I actually enjoyed messing around in the kitchen for hours, and time would fly in the same way as it did when I was lost in a book. Baking bread started to take a central role in my cooking, and, on the eve of a day off work, I would fall asleep thinking about what sort of bread I might start making in the morning. If I had some dough rising, I might sneak downstairs to have a look at it in the middle of the night. I hope that this excitement in making bread never leaves me, and that this book might help you to find it too. In parts of the world where people struggle to feed themselves, or at times in our own history, making bread has constituted an unavoidable part of the daily grind, rather than a source of pleasure and fulfillment. However, it does seem that the more that digital and remote ways of interacting dominate our lives, the more we appreciate the opposite, the benefits of a return to basics, the natural, the handmade and the real. We recognise the merits of walking, even though we could get to our destination more quickly by car. We relish the joys of growing our own vegetables, despite the labours involved. And we might sometimes spend days knitting a jumper, rather than buying one from a shop. This book is about the value of making bread by hand, from choice rather than necessity, and the benefits that can result for our health and well-being. Bread therapy is a kneading together of 7 factors that contribute to emotional and psychological well-being. It describes how baking bread can provide us with the ingredients for a fulfilled life. In my work as a therapist, I am constantly faced with the damaging impact of perfectionism on mental health. Accepting that nothing is perfect and that we all make mistakes is therefore highly beneficial. There are lots of things that can, and often do, go wrong when we are baking bread. So it provides us with lots of opportunities to practice accepting the imperfect. This acceptance of imperfection, and in turn our own fallibility, is a stepping stone to developing greater self-compassion and improved psychological well-being. Being able to bake our own bread affords us increased self-sufficiency in difficult times. Understanding ourselves better and learning about the different ways we can support our mental health, as described in this book, also puts us in a position to take more responsibility for our own well-being. Bread therapy will show you how, through learning to make your own bread, you can also learn essential life lessons. I have a passion for making bread, and I want you to benefit from this craft.